Hi, Hayden speaking.
Hi, Hayden. It's David here. How are you?
I saw that I was getting a call from California.
So when I call you on Facebook and you know who's calling, you never pick up. I have to call multiple times. When I call on this mystery number like I've done just now, you picked up immediately.
Yeah, but I don't have to go through the history with you on that.
We're doing an episode that's set in Australia today. It's about a mystery that's been going on for many, many, many years. It's a very strange story, probably too strange to talk to you about. But I'm just wondering, sort of as a side dish to that, what is your take on New Zealand's neighbour, Australia?
Well, I don't want to be parochial and say it's my patriotic duty to hate them or anything like that, but they are bad, aren't they? I mean, that's the thing. They are like a worse New Zealand, slightly more criminal, just slightly worse in every single way, and they're not kind of plucky, battling underdogs like us. They're a bit arrogant. I think that maybe this is okay for me to stereotype a whole country because I don't know, but if you could find a reason why it's okay, that would be really helpful for me. I will say that I had some really great sandwiches in Melbourne, and there's some really cool things to see in Australia, and Perth I like because it's far away from everything.
I'm David Farrier, a New Zealander accidentally marooned in America, and I want to figure out what makes this country tick. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that I was recently unmarooned, spending some time in Australia. While I was there, I kept making this podcast, turning my eye to what makes Australia unique and interesting. A few weeks back, we looked at shark attacks after I'd read a headline saying that Australia had more annual deaths caused by sharks than any other country on Earth. I'm pleased to say that today's episode takes place entirely on land in the busy city of Melbourne, where Hayden said they have really good sandwiches. But it also involves sudden, sometimes shocking incidents taking place on inner city streets. Imagine you're just standing there minding your own business when a man starts having a seizure next to you. As he drops to the ground convulsing, he has one simple request. Please sit on me right now. You look around and you're the only one that can help. As the man continues to pulsate on the ground, you do what the guy wants. You sit on top of him. You sit, you hold him down, and after a few minutes, the whole thing's over. He gets up and says, "Thank you, you have helped my seizure," and he walks off into the night. Your good deed is done. But years later, you're at a bar and you hear someone else have the exact same thing happen, except they've got a name for the guy. They call him Fake Seizure Guy. And he's been doing this for a very, very long time. This is the Fake Seizure Guy episode.
Flightless, flightless, flightless bird touchdown in America. I'm a flightless bird touchdown in America.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been another week of chaos here in America, and it feels nice to maybe like dip off to another country.
Yeah.
Have you ever sat on anyone at their request? Has this ever happened to you here in America? You can be honest. It feels like it has.
I mean, that seems like a little too much information.
Yeah, it is a lot.
To ask me, David.
It's very revealing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when this is being broadcast far and wide.
Yeah. Strangers never asked me to sit on them, no.
If someone was having what appeared to be a medical emergency and they said, sit on me.
Sit on my chest.
Sit on my chest.
Yeah.
You do it? It's hard to know with these things, like, unless you're in the situation, what you do. I feel like this is one of those very specific things. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I guess it would be slightly dependent on if it seemed like someone that was unstable.
Yeah, so you'd be assessing them in the moment, thinking who they are.
Yeah, you fell over and started seizing, and
You'd sit on me?
If you were like, that's how you save me.
Sit on me.
Is sit on my chest.
That means so much. Thanks, Rob.
Or it really depends on the context. If I'm just walking down the street, though, in like New York, and there's someone on the ground doing that, I don't know how quickly I jump on their chest.
Okay, well, we'll circle back to this.
Okay.
After the doc, because I'm curious if your expectations have changed. Because this episode is set in Australia, I wanted to just tick off a few things. So the shark episode, I did all the interviews in Sydney. This is in Melbourne. This sweater that I've worn for a few episodes now, this is VB beer.
So I saw some comments on that and I thought it was a typo.
So this is a beer in Victoria, and Melbourne is in Victoria.
In honor of the Australia episodes, you're doing an Australian accent for these, right?
Absolutely. I'm speaking in that now.
Okay.
Yeah, you can tell the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
The difference is, I feel like the Australian accent is a bit more irritating. Maybe I would say that because New Zealanders hate Australians. But I feel like it's a bit louder. And it's like if New Zealanders are Canadians, like a bit soft and gentle, and then Americans are a bit louder and more like obnoxious. That's a bit
you've made that
Australians
argument before. I think there's got to be like phonetic things that are different, though. More than just like loud and obnoxious.
No, there are.
Like,
and there's
more intelligent and quieter.
There's that as well.
More
and there's also
with what they're saying.
There's lingo that differs as well. Before we get into this very specific story about fake Seizure Guy, a couple of things that I learned while I was in Australia. Melbourne has hook turns. Do you know what hook turns are?
No, I don't even think I could take a guess.
This terrified me. So I was driving in a friend's car and I was driving along and I had to turn right. And they said, "This is a hook turn." I said, "What are you talking about?" I looked this way. What side of the road was I on? I had to look this way. And a hook turn. So usually when you, so hard explaining like traffic directions.
Is it just the degree at which you're turning?
No. So instead of, say you're driving in a straight line and you need to turn right, usually you would be in the right lane, right? Ready to turn right. A hook turn is, no, you duck off to the far left out of the way. So traffic is passing you the whole time. And as the light changes, then you make your big turn. So it's the opposite to what you feel that you're meant to do anywhere else. And it's apparently cyclists do this.
Wait, so you're crossing traffic twice to turn?
Okay, I'm going to show you this illustration of what a hook turn is. And it's very specific to Melbourne. So you're basically like, if you're going to turn right, you go off extremely to the left, like you duck off to the left and wait. Mm-hmm. And then when it's ready to turn, you quickly do your turn and merge into the traffic that's going in that direction.
So you're looking at traffic coming from both directions on that turn then?
You are, yeah, it's terrifying.
Across, yeah.
It's awful. But that's what you do in Melbourne. And I just found that really unique. I was like, why the hell are we doing this, Melbourne? This is crazy.
It's just Melbourne or it's all of Australia?
I'm on Wikipedia now. No, just Melbourne.
They've got their own turn technique?
They've got their own thing. I'm on Wikipedia, great website. The legal use of hook turns by motor vehicles is relatively rare, but it's been implemented in some jurisdictions, notably in Melbourne, Australia, to keep the centre of a road free from congestion for use by light rail. And Melbourne has a lot of light rail. And trams. So yeah, that's the other thing I should say. So Melbourne has a lot of trams running in the middle of the street. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to turn right and you're sitting in the right lane, you're potentially in the way of a tram. So instead you go far off to the left. Anyway, I've learned not to try and ramble on about driving in a podcast because it's really complicated to talk about. Yeah, it's
complicated without, especially even seeing the visuals. Doesn't help. I'm kind of get it. But
just know that if you're in Melbourne and you're going to be taking a turn, prepare to be stressed out because I was very stressed.
But they drive on the same side of the road as us?
They do. No, separate. Different. Separate. No, so we drive, in America, we drive on the right-hand side. In New Zealand, you drive on the left-hand side.
But Australia's on the left-hand side too?
Yeah, same as New Zealand.
So, but in your picture, was that a one-way road?
Oh, Christ.
All your explanation was you're on the right side of the road to turn right. But you're on the left side of the road turning.
No, where am I? What country am I driving in this hypothetical situation?
Yeah, you'd be on the left side.
I'll be on the left side.
You're just doing a hook around. Okay, it makes more sense now.
Sorry, I was in the wrong.
Yeah.
I was mentally driving in America in my explanation.
Which that turn sounded crazy because you'd be going across oncoming traffic to then cross both.
No, I understand the confusion now.
But if you're on the left, it makes a little more sense that you're getting out of the way.
Yeah.
To then go all the way across.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Got it.
You nailed it.
Got it.
Entirely my fault. I often do this. You know, when I got back from being in Australia, I had to mentally adjust as I got in the car. Like, what way am I about to drive? Like, what side of the road?
The idea of driving on the other side of the road freaks me out a little bit.
I mean, the trick I always do is like you just follow the car in front of you.
Sure.
But I was driving in New Zealand after being in America, and there were sort of a back road, and my friend was like, "You are aware that you're on the wrong side of the road," and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Turning too, it's all so second nature of like, am I taking the inside or the outside?
No, there's all of that
lane?
comes into play. Plus, you're driving on the other, like you're physically sitting on the other side of the car. Anyway, another thing, because we're in Melbourne, a lot of people wanted me to go and investigate Carrot Man. Have you heard of Carrot Man?
Different from Carrot Top?
Different from Carrot Top.
Okay.
Now, this isn't an episode about Carrot Man, but because he's in Melbourne, I wanted to just make you aware of him. Dubbed Carrot Man, this Fitzroy resident's adventures with a distinctive prop have won hearts in Melbourne and beyond.
It's a prop guy?
He carries around a giant carrot. He's a prop guy.
But Carrot Top's a prop guy. He's a prop comic.
Oh, he's a prop comic.
That's what he's known for.
Oh, that's so funny. So no, Carrot Man unrelated, but does have props, much like Carrot Top.
Okay.
That's him carrying a carrot.
He just walks around with a carrot.
That's all he does. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. It's another weird thing in Melbourne.
I guess we have people like that in America.
Distinctive kind of go-tos.
Yeah.
Do you any come to mind? Like specific, like that's a guy we know about? New Zealand has like a lot of them as well. We had a guy called One Dread who passed away fairly recently, but he, as the name implies, just had one big dread. He had a house somewhere, but he mostly lived on the street, and he was a real character. He was like very short, massive one, like wadded up dread that reached to the ground, and he was like an icon.
I mean, in Chicago, you've got Thax Douglas. He's like a poet.
Okay.
And a lot of bands will have, like, he'll write a poem.
What a great name, Thax.
And he'll come out and read a poem before the band starts that it's like about the band.
Oh, I love him.
And he's been around the Chicago music scene for like 25, maybe more than that, 25 at least.
So let's get on to the story of fake Seizure Guy. I'd written about him on Webroom a few months before I went to Australia, so I was sort of very curious about him, and I thought, because I'm on the ground, I should actually start talking to people about what happened.
How did you hear about him? This is a new guy you heard about?
It's a new guy. I started hearing murmurings about it, and the more I heard, the more I was like curious to actually figure out what the hell was going on, which is how I got into this journey. But the very first, the way it started, it had an American link. I heard about it from an American.
Wow.
It was about 4 months ago when I first spoke to someone about this story. I was in my little apartment in Los Angeles and was Zooming with a 21-year-old student currently attending the University of California. He'd messaged me a few weeks earlier about a story that sounded, well, right up my alley. It happened while he was studying abroad a few years back.
So my name's Noah. I'm a fourth-year sociology student at UC Davis. And I ended up in Melbourne because I had the opportunity to go abroad. And I had the choice between Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And Melbourne seems like the flattest place. I don't like hills and stuff. So that was primarily my main motivation to going to Melbourne, was that it was flat.
He's not wrong. Melbourne is flat. If you want hills, you go to Sydney. If you want flat, you go to Melbourne. Noah ended up getting to Melbourne in July of 2023. He found lots of things to love, like Australian football, even though he missed a few things from back home.
The lemonade was a problem. You guys don't have actual lemonade on that side of the world. I went to New Zealand too. It's the same shit.
But we weren't here to talk about the lack of lemonade down under. We were here to talk about something strange that happened to him in the lively neighbourhood of Carlton. It's mainly known for its Little Italy Street, an indie theatre called the Nova, as well as a lot of cafes where students hang out. Just take me through it, like right from the beginning, like where you were, what you were doing, what happened.
Yeah, so next to my apartment building in Carlton, there was this nice park that I would just go to and read at. So one day I went, can't remember if I was reading or writing a journal or something. I was kind of distracted, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, there was this guy 20, 30 meters away from me. I couldn't see him too well, but he just seemed kind of odd. I don't know really how to explain it.
That might be a detail he added in later with the benefit of hindsight, or maybe he just got that thing that happens sometimes when you just sense something's a bit odd in the air, which is fair because odd was about to happen.
And then a few minutes later, I saw that he was convulsing. He had no control over his body. And I was concerned, so I sort of looked over there and just making sure he was okay. And then he fell to the ground and kept convulsing. I'm like, oh shit, something's wrong. And so I don't know if it was because I had a hero complex or I'm like, oh, this dude's in trouble. I need to help him. Maybe I was just bored. I ran over there and tried to help. And so the first thing I did was I asked him, like, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And really without pausing, he said, like, I need you to like lay on top of me and restrain my arms and legs. And I don't know why, but I was just like, okay, I'm not thinking about this. I'm just going to do it.
Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Support for Flightless Bird comes from Quince. Now, elevating my style used to mean breaking the bank, but with Quince, you can get high-end, versatile pieces at prices you can actually afford. Now, I can upgrade my style by snagging killer luxury essentials that sync with my vibe and wallet. For me recently, that's a lot of outside stuff for when I'm hiking, a lot of shorts that breathe really well, and because it's really cold, I have a puffer jacket that I absolutely adore, and it goes with me everywhere, whether I'm in Los Angeles in the cold or in New Zealand in the cold. Quince also has all the must-haves like Mongolian cashmere crewneck sweaters from $50 and iconic 100% leather jackets and versatile flow-knit activewear. That's the stuff I like. The best part of all this, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. That's huge. And by partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts through the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to you and me. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices along with premium fabrics and finishes. I'm actually wearing Quince right now as I record this ad. I'm about to go hiking in these shorts, and I can't wait. Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/bird for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/bird to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/bird. Flightless Bird is brought to you by Rocket Money. Now, if there's one thing I hate in life, and this probably resonates with you, it probably resonates with most people, I hate spending money on things that I shouldn't be spending money on. I hate just flinging money away into the ether when I don't need to be doing that. And that's where Rocket Money comes in. Because so often you sign up for something, you forget about it after the trial period ends, even if you put it in your calendar, then you're charged month after month after month. The subscriptions are there, but you're not using them. In fact, I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going out unused each month. And thanks to Rocket Money, you can see all your subscriptions in one place and cancel the ones that you're not using anymore, saving you money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You can see all of your subscriptions in the one place and know exactly where your money's going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. The dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. And you can get alerts if bills increase in price, or if there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over your budget. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in cancelled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/bird today. That's rocketmoney.com/bird. rocketmoney.com/bird. He reckons there were about 20 people in the park that day, but none of them were as close as he was, and the guy was talking directly at him. And so, he helped.
So I laid on this guy for about 10 or 15 minutes. He was telling me like what to do, how exactly to lay on him. I remember him getting mad because he was a bigger dude than me. He was trying it felt like his arms were trying to like break out of my like grasp on them. He would tell me to like, no, you got to grab harder. You got to move this way. He was like, what are you doing? Like, this is like, he was getting upset at me for like not doing it correctly. And I'm like, dude, I haven't done this before. I'm not an expert in this shit. But I just remember it went on for like 10 or 15 minutes.
An added level of surrealness for Noah is that he hadn't been in Australia that long. He was in a new country, doing a new thing. He just went along with it.
The whole time, he sounded so confident about what I needed to do. Like he had this happen a lot to him, and this was just like a normal thing. So it seemed just like a medical seizure or something. I remember getting really tired because I kept having to restrain him. And then he started shaking less or convulsing less. And finally it stopped. And then I rolled off him or whatever, stood up. And then after a few seconds, he stood up and then he just walked away. I was really surprised. There wasn't like a thank you. There wasn't like a anything. He just walked away, didn't look back at me. I was like, what the fuck just happened?
What had happened is that Noah had just met fake Seizure Guy. He didn't know it then, but he found out soon enough.
I was in the tram with like 5 of my friends. And then I just heard one of them say, have you guys heard about the dude who goes around Melbourne having fake seizures? And I like look at him and like, what the fuck? And there was like a few minutes of me processing. I made him show like every single thing on Reddit. There's a good picture of him on Reddit. When I finally saw that, I'm like, holy shit, that's the guy.
By the time I talked to Noah, I'd already been lurking on Melbourne Reddit for about a year. I'd periodically see posts about these incidents, but the mods would just delete them pretty quickly, within minutes. I did some Googling to try and find news stories about it, assuming I'd find them, because it seemed to be happening a lot. There wasn't a single story about it. And so I added it to the list of things I wanted to figure out when I went to Australia. It was a 15-hour flight from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia, and then another hour-and-a-half flight to Melbourne. On the way, I watched some CCTV footage of a user called Porker. He'd uploaded it to YouTube early last year. It was taken at his father's timber business, and it's timestamped just after 5 p.m. You see fake Seizure Guy entering from the right of frame, suddenly dropping to the ground where he begins to convulse. 15 seconds later, Porker's dad enters frame, asking if he's alright. Fake Seizure Guy gets to his feet as the man says, confused, "Where did you fall from?" Fake Seizure Guy then drops to the ground again, shaking. Things unfold in an eerily similar way to what happened with Noah, with a few exceptions. I'll let Porker himself explain, the guy who uploaded the CCTV footage from his dad's work. I met him in a bar. He wanted to stay anonymous as Porker, but was happy to explain what had happened that day. Tell me about your encounter with fake Seizure Guy, how he came into your life.
Okay, so we run a timber business and I had gone home for the day and I'd received a call from my dad at around 7:30 p.m. saying, "You won't believe what just happened." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I was working on the car and some guy just started having a seizure next to me." And me, obviously being a Reddit lurker, knew about fake Seizure Guy, and I said to him, "Hang on, wait. Did he tell you to sit on his back?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "You're joking." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "You just got G'd, you got shafted, like you've just been fucked around with, you know?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "No, he goes around Melbourne, it's what he does, Dad." He goes, "Nah." He goes, "But he asked me to tie him up and everything." And I go, "Yeah, well, why the fuck would you tie him up for?" And the funny thing is, I had to convince my dad that it was actually not a real seizure. My dad ended up tying his arms way too tight, and he asked if my dad could loosen them. And then my dad offered to call an ambulance.
At the mention of an ambulance, magically the seizure started to stop. Fake Seizure Guy gets up, no longer convulsing. The pair of men shake hands. Fake Seizure Guy exits stage right. His rescuer takes a breath. The whole thing lasted for about 12 minutes. 12 minutes of sitting, grabbing, gyrating, and restraining with rope. But what also struck me about all this is the fact Porker instantly knew what was happening. I wondered if this happened so often it had become a sort of Melbourne law.
For 3 years I'd heard about it on Reddit, and it sounds so cliche, but you never think it's going to happen at the front of your own house, you know?
Yeah, not to your dad.
Yeah, literally. He was so proud of himself, you got no idea.
What was your dad's reaction? Did he laugh or is he like...
Well, at the time, he thought it was legit. He was under the impression that he helped someone. Took me a fair bit of convincing to tell him that what he did was probably the worst thing to do for someone having a seizure. But he was pretty upset. He felt like he was taken advantage of in a way.
There are a few things going on here at once. On one hand, Porker acknowledges what happened is serious, that his dad was upset, that he felt like he'd been taken advantage of. On the other hand, it's all just a bit of a joke. This is a very Australian reaction to something like this. It's the same in New Zealand. We make a joke out of everything, even if it's not all that funny.
I took the piss out of my dad for a very long time and downloaded that camera footage, and we still laugh about it.
Porker and his dad didn't call the cops. They weren't sure they needed to. Life just went on. Porker says they still even see the guy from time to time.
He still comes around from time to time. But yeah, I'm sort of torn at the moment because I have tried to say hi to him and like gauge what sort of a person he is, but he just completely is like in his own world and doesn't want to respond or anything.
So they clock each other and move on. Is this like one of the stranger things that's happened to you in Melbourne?
Fake Seizure Guy is definitely up there, man. Definitely up there. Because he seems to snap out of it as soon as you say that you'll call him an ambulance, you know. He magically healed, shakes my dad's hand. My dad felt so proud. You don't understand how proud my dad was. He felt so accomplished, like he'd done something good. Like that was
Save someone.
That was a good deed for the day, yeah. He called me to brag about it and I ended up fucking up his whole day.
Initially, I had thought this had been going on for about a year, max. But Porker says he had known about it for at least 3. To the point where when people see it taking place, some now know exactly what's going on. People like Aaron, who witnessed an incident about 5 months ago. He was in his friend Brody's apartment. The last time they'd looked out onto the street, they'd seen a guy practicing his skating. The next time they looked, well...
So my encounter with the fake seizure guy happened in August of 2024. It was really strange because it happened right out in front of my apartment. My friend Brody was staying at my place and I just happened to look outside and I saw some commotion, see what was going on. Took a closer look and realised that with a little bit of verification, realised it was the fake seizure guy.
There's this weird thing that happens where this thing's happening online and it's this really weird feeling when they suddenly jump into real life. I think it's kind of a rare thing to encounter. What was that feeling like? Where you're like, oh, you know this from the internet, but suddenly there it is outside the window.
Yeah, so strange. I thought at first there might be a citizen's arrest or something. That's what it sort of looked like to me. But we realised it wasn't. Brody and I sort of went back and forth together and decided, well, we need to do something about this. Like, we can't just sit here and watch what's happening. So Brody, who looks like a very menacing guy, he's very sweet. But we went onto the balcony and sort of yelled down at him to break up the situation. Brody yelled, is everything all right down there? Just to kind of draw some attention to it. And that's when he started explaining that, he was having muscle spasms and he needed someone to hold down his arms. We obviously knew that wasn't the case. So to further intervene, we said, you're not that guy we've seen on the internet before. And as soon as we said that, the mood very much changed for the guy sitting on top of him. He sort of realised what was happening and immediately stood up and went, I want nothing to do with this. This guy beforehand was, practicing his skating on my street and was just roped into it.
The skater gets up and stops restraining fake seizure guy on the ground. What is fake seizure guy doing once you intervene?
He was yelling back at us, trying to, I guess, convince us that he was having muscle spasms and that he did need help. It wasn't very convincing because we had obviously seen him on the internet before, but he was trying very hard to convince us that is what was happening.
He said after a few words back and forth, the guy basically gave up and walked off around the corner. His seizures, well, they'd stopped.
There's obviously been people that have called him out for doing, whatever he's doing, but not to the point where the police could realistically make that positive change. I mean, for example, like after that incident happened for us, we debated calling the police. In hindsight, we probably should have. We didn't at the time, because we felt there wasn't a lot that they would have been able to do. And I think ultimately that's something that a lot of people have felt as well. There's not a lot that they could do. I think he obviously doesn't have maybe the social skills to be able to recognise that the behaviour is wrong. He continuously defends himself in those interactions. And I think it's really quite sad, actually, that he doesn't have the means to be able to change that behaviour.
How well known is he here, do you think?
The night of the day that event happened for us, we were actually going out to the pub to meet some mates. Yep. And we had a great story for them. They were hooked the whole way through. But all of our mates that we were with knew about the fake seizure guy.
All this reminded me of someone else, someone back in America, a man called Kevin Carpet. Kevin Carpet likes to pretend to be carpet so people can step, or if he's lucky, stand on him. I'm reading from a piece in The Cut from 2022. Several times a week now since the 1980s, he lies down on the sticky floors of New York clubs and positions himself so that people can stand on him, or can't avoid doing so. Eventually, he took to wrapping himself, Cleopatra style, into carpets. which is why he's known as Kevin Carpet. The piece continues. Kevin considers his pastime a sort of long-durational performance art. After the second hour, I start zoning out, he says. It's a Zen-type state. I'm feeling the people, hearing what they're talking about, he tells us. I'm looking down at everyone hanging out, and I just phase out of being a person. I wonder if fake Seizure Guy is doing his own version, Melbourne's longest ongoing performance art piece. And whatever's going on, word is starting to spread. Since I started looking into this 6 months ago, and certainly since I'd come to Melbourne, people were talking about it. He'd started to appear on Australian TikTok.
There's a few really weird things about Australia that we just seem to ignore. Every Aussie city has one thing the locals think is normal, but it just really isn't.
A pretty big influencer in Australia, Christian Hull, heard the chatter and remembered that uncannily he'd had his own experience a number of years ago. He took to his 2 million followers on TikTok to recount what had happened to him.
Buckle in, this is a long story, but this is what happened when I sat on this man. Poor naive Christian had no fucking idea of what was to come.
Fake Seizure Guy started getting mentions beyond Australian social media, hitting the giant podcast Last Podcast on the Left.
Apparently this is a well-known character in the Melbourne area. Where's the fucking reporters on this?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen one thing about him.
They mentioned a subreddit, which I think is worth pointing out. Remember how I said the mods on Melbourne's main Reddit were deleting posts? A new subreddit had been created in response, where people just logged sightings. A lot of the posts treated it as a bit of a gag, but others had a more serious tone. It's not some harmless prank, quirk, or joke, reads one of them. It goes on. For starters, you never need to restrain anyone seizing. When in doubt, first aid for seizures is pretty much hands off, call ambulance. Don't fear you're endangering someone who is having a medical emergency. That is not the case, and certainly anyone capable of jumping up and running away when you say you're about to phone 000 isn't in medical need. 000 is the Australian equivalent of 911. The undertone here is that things are somehow allegedly sexual in nature. This theory has come up with everyone I've spoken to. I don't get into it too much here, I guess for the same reason people are reluctant to call the police. They don't have proof. They don't know for sure. The Reddit post from earlier mentions this aspect, saying, "For those who've been assaulted by him, you have every right to how you feel about this. People have a right to define their own experiences. If you're feeling numb, sad, hurt, angry, confused, violated, whatever, or a combination by the experience, what you feel is valid. You deserve empathy and support. You're entitled to help. You didn't do anything wrong. You weren't stupid to fall for it. You were manipulated. No one has any right to minimize what happened." With posts like that in mind, and what I've heard, now's probably the time to say I reached out to Melbourne Police about this back in October. I fired off a fairly general email to Victoria Police. Victoria is the state that Melbourne sits in. The thing is, going on the reply I got from a senior media advisor, it seems like they'd never heard of any of this. Their reply read, "Thanks for reaching out. You need to advise please if any of these matters have been reported to police, and if so, who to and when. As you would imagine, these could have been reported anywhere. If any of the victims you've been speaking to can provide an investigator name, even better. Then we'll be able to follow up." I went back and forth with police, and just over a week later, they came back with a more proper statement. Victoria Police is aware of a man using public transport who is alleged presents to have seizures and then inappropriately touch people who go to his aid. While we haven't received any reports from victims, police have spoken with this man about his behaviour. This included when local police were called to a welfare check on the man on August 25th. The man did not require medical treatment. We encourage anyone subjected to such behaviour to make an official report. This means we can then use this information to investigate and lay any criminal charges as appropriate. Shortly after getting this email from police, I got another email I was not expecting. It said it was from fake Seizure Guy's friend. And suddenly, my whole perspective on this thing shifted. Again. Let me just read out the whole email that arrived in my inbox. I know the fake Seizure Guy really well. I've spent a lot of time with him over the past few years. He has really severe autism. He's completely harmless. He would never sexually assault anyone. He simply does not know that his behavior is unacceptable to people like us. The reason he wants people to sit on him and restrain him is that he's stimming. He's trying to get what's called deep pressure stimulation, which is a common symptom of those who have severe autism. e.g. enjoying weighted blankets or hugs. I've attached a link where you can get more information. Applied Behavior Analysis, edu.org, What is Deep Pressure Stimulation? I'm worried your article might inspire vigilantism in Melbourne. As you're aware, he has become a boogeyman on Reddit, and a lot of people are talking about how he is a dangerous sexual predator, which is not true. He is disabled, and I assure you that he's harmless. And our community has a responsibility to look after people with disabilities and keep them safe. I'm keen to chat more. Let me know when you receive this email. This stopped me in my tracks, and I wondered if I had this whole thing wrong. Were the motivations of fake Seizure Guy nothing more than rumour and conjecture? Was the alleged inappropriate touching mentioned by the police just a need for this deep pressure stimulation? A disclaimer here, this isn't a podcast episode about autism, and I'm not going to even pretend to be an expert here. I get anxious even raising it because there's such a vast range of experiences, all valid in various ways. And I'm not trying to say autism is an excuse for misleading people. Even the applied behavior analysis that friend mentioned in his email seems to be a field filled with massive debate, some calling the field itself abusive. What I did find out is that according to the latest stats out of the US, about 1 in 36 children have been identified with autism spectrum disorder. And experts in the field of autism told me that some do enjoy deep pressure stimulation. But here's the thing. Regardless of whether this person's autistic or has something else going on, this behavior of allegedly pretending to have a seizure puts both the community and the guy at risk. Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Flightless Bird is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, what is my relationship to green flags? To be honest, until I read this ad, I'd never heard of them. We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focused more on looking for green flags in friends and in potential partners? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help identify those green flags, actively practice them in your relationships, and embody the green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, it's time to form relationships that love you back. As for me in therapy, it's something that I've had an on and off relationship with over the years, but this year I'm really cracking into it, and I'm seeing a therapist once a week, and it has been, thus far, invaluable. It's my thing for 2025, which I know sounds very LA, but look, it's helpful. BetterHelp is fully online and makes therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Access a diverse range of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties, and you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/bird to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/bird. Support for Flightless Bird comes from Blue Nile. Now, are you planning to pop the big question? I'm not right now, but look, one day I might do. You never know. I hear it's a huge moment, but what they don't tell you is how many decisions you'll have to make when choosing the perfect engagement ring. Shape, size, style, setting, cut, color. I'm getting stressed just talking about this. And if you're like most people, you may have absolutely no idea. But I hear that they're going to know exactly what they want. So it's time to learn, and fast. There's no better place to start than BlueNile.com. At BlueNile.com, you'll create a bigger, more brilliant engagement ring than you can imagine at a price you'll never find at a traditional jeweler. Since 1999, Blue Nile has been the original online jeweler, always committed to ensuring that the highest ethical standards are observed when sourcing diamonds and jewelry. Also, your surprise is going to be safe because when you order on Blue Nile, it's insured and arrives in packaging that won't give away what's inside so you don't ruin the big surprise. I hear like when you're giving the ring, it's got to be a surprise, so that really helps there. And in most cases, it's delivered overnight. Blue Nile also has a 100% satisfaction guarantee with free shipping and returns, so you can make sure the ring you pick is the one. And because love can last forever, you get free service and repair for life. Right now, get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code FLIGHT at BlueNile.com. That's $50 off with code FLIGHT at BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com. With all of this in mind, I replied to fake Seizure Guy's friend asking if we could talk some more. I requested more details, just simple things like how did they know him? Did they have any concern for his friend's safety, given the way he was conducting himself with strangers? Could I maybe talk to someone more directly involved? And did the man have any kind of care or help? My questions went unanswered. My emails went unanswered. I tried again. It seemed like out of anyone, his friend would have the answers I needed. They never replied to me. So, because I was in Melbourne, I decided to talk to one final person. The social media star who'd had a first-hand experience. From what I could tell, he had had the earliest documented experience with fake Seizure Guy, encountering him in 2019.
When I reflect, I'm like, every single second is a giant red flag. It's like literally a red flag the size of a king-size bed being waved in my face, and I just didn't see any of them.
Christian was out with his friend Ben, filming some content for TikTok. They didn't expect the content they were about to get.
He couldn't have picked a more opportune time because I was at my most vulnerable. I hate the cold, and it was dark and cold in Melbourne. It was winter, and we were just near the casino by the river. I just noticed this very thin, sort of gaunt-looking younger gentleman who was clearly, in my mind, having a medical episode. And he's come right up, and he's sort of shaking a little bit, and he looks, I'm like, oh, shit, having almost no medical experience. I was like, oh, I think he's having a seizure.
Look, by this point...
And so I was like, okay, so I sat on him like he was a bus stop. So I'm sitting on him. What is this even doing?
You know how this goes. It starts small.
And then it was just another instruction. Okay, can you put them behind my back?
And just escalates.
And so I start straddling him, and I'm holding his arms now. So he's like a horse. I'm riding him like a horse.
At this point, all the stories are just bleeding into each other. And mainly with Christian, I'm interested in what he makes of this all now.
It's insane to me that, one, the media haven't done anything. Two, it is like so well known in Melbourne. Some people are like, well, why hasn't he been charged? But when you think about it, I sat on somebody. What could the police do? Like, stop being an idiot and don't sit on people who are clearly not having a seizure. Although the whole thing is so fucking strange. It's right on that sort of line where the police can't do anything, you know, sure, we can report it to them, but it's not until he, I think, crosses that line that they have something to charge him on. And then people are so probably nervous to come forward, ashamed, and also just genuinely have no idea what the fuck has just happened because it's so quick, it's so confusing, and it's just like, did he have a seizure? Now he's getting up and running. What?
In this case, Christian and his friend did call the police. It was all a bit too strange for them. Not that calling the police did very much. I mean, what had the police told me? We haven't received any official reports from victims.
After we called the police, I was a bit shaken and I lived a short walk away. But I asked Ben, my videographer, I was like, can you drive me home? He's like, yeah, absolutely. As we're walking back to the car park, we look over at some commotion, and this is literally 200 meters away. He is doing the same thing to these young guys fishing in the river. And Ben runs over and is like, you know, screaming, like, it's fake. This isn't real. Get off of him. He just did this to us. And he immediately, at this point, he was on the ground and someone was just hovering over him. They hadn't sat on him at this point. And he got up and ran immediately. Like, Jesus Christ, like 200 meters away. Definitely afterwards, would this prevent me from helping someone in an emergency situation? And ultimately, I came to the conclusion of no, but it will make me a lot more aware of what's happening. And just when you go into something like that, don't fully trust somebody, which is sad, but just always be aware that there could be maybe an ulterior motive, just in the back of your mind, just because at that point when I was helping him, I was 100% in it. And so if I was like cautious, I would have still followed through. I probably would have still done the exact same thing, to be fair. I'm not going to be like, you're not having a seizure. Like, that's awful. But yeah.
And here's the thing. Christian's so torn about this. When someone needs help, you help. That's how we're meant to operate as a society.
Also, he's done it so many times that he's got it down to a fine art. He knows exactly what to say, when to say it. He gets in, does what he needs to do, and gets out. I do worry that all he has to do is pick the wrong person, and he's not only ruined his life, but he ruins theirs. You know, because in the heat of the moment, you know, they might do something that, you know, they get charged for. I personally don't see an end to this. I just don't see it. I don't want him to get injured or hurt.
I feel almost more confused at this point than when I did coming in. I think about the police saying they'd never had an official report. I think of all the stories I've heard, of Porker saying his dad felt upset and taken advantage of. I clock that it's only male victims, never female. I keep thinking about that email, allegedly from the man's friend, saying he's harmless. Our community has a responsibility to look after people with disabilities and keep them safe. While I was in Melbourne, I'd been to some of the spots fake Seizure Guy had been spotted. I never saw him. There is another piece of correspondence worth noting. I talked to a grad student studying applied behaviour analysis, that somewhat controversial area I'd mentioned earlier. They were a registered behaviour technician, and I thought their message was interesting. Deep pressure stimulation is something that's known about in the applied behaviour analysis community because it has mountains of scientific evidence backing it up. Stimming is when a person on the spectrum does what we call stereotypic behaviours, behaviour that has no environmental purpose but is self-reinforcing. In general, there's nothing wrong with stimming, and most ABA therapists don't interfere with stimming. Some clients need guidance to learn when and where they can do certain types of stimming, and many clients stim from frustration. ABA helps them learn to navigate overwhelming feelings like that so they can move forward rather than do nothing but stim. Any person on the spectrum would probably tell you the same thing I'm telling you. People who stim don't go around asking strangers to get involved with their stimming. In fact, that's part of the point of stimming. It helps block outside stimulation that's overwhelming the client. Conclusion, whoever wrote you that email may have actually been fake Seizure Guy. Or they may have convinced themselves they know what's going on and they're defending a poor autistic person. Either way, that email was wildly incorrect. Whoever he is, and no matter what his neurostasis is, he's not stimming when he does that. Nearing the end of my time in Melbourne, I put on a screening of my old film Tickled, a documentary made with my friend Dylan. I did it at the Nova, the cinema in the same neighbourhood Noah, the UC Davis student, had his encounter with fake Seizure Guy. Tickled is about a man who came up with a series of elaborate, misleading stories so he could convince young men to tickle each other. During the Q&A after the film, someone wanted to know how many similar stories are going on, how rare they are. I replied by saying, well, Melbourne sort of has its own version. Afterwards, in the lobby, someone walked up to me. They knew who I was talking about.
I used to work at a cinema down at Crown Casino, down by the river. I want to say 12 years ago. And they put a notice up on the corkboard in the break room to say, look out for this guy. Yeah. He's like been faking seizures and getting people to sit on him.
This was 12 years ago.
Yeah. At least. Like.
And were you aware that this is still going on?
No.
That's really wild.
Yeah. It's baffling that he's still at it.
There's no way to verify if it's the same guy, but either way, 12 years is a longer time than I'd ever suspected. If it was a different guy, well, I guess there's more than one fake Seizure Guy in Melbourne. If so, how many are there? Occam's razor says it's probably just the one guy, and he's been at it for a while. The reason, well, we're still just guessing. Before I flew back to America, I reached out to the Victoria Police again one more time, telling them what I found out and requesting an interview in person. On December 1st last year, they replied. Unfortunately, we won't be able to facilitate an interview. Appreciate you getting in touch though, and I'll definitely keep you in the loop if there's any update. Since then, no updates from the police. Things still remain ultimately a mystery. Whatever's going on, whatever the reason he's doing this, I just think, like with so many things in life, one person's personal issues don't excuse their behavior with others. Okay,
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
A lot to take in. I recorded that a while ago now. I mean, I'm still stunned that potentially it's been happening for 12 years.
Well, it's crazy you also talked to 5 people that had encounters with him.
Yeah.
Before we get into too much, Noah wanted to live in a place for its flatness. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, no, it's funny because my friends in Melbourne, they all talk about this, the fact that Melbourne's very flat.
Yeah.
And they like it there because it's flat. They can go outside and they're not getting puffed walking up hills.
See long distance.
They can see way into the distance.
Well, is it like a claustrophobia thing or like a fear
it's
of
a really good question.
Mudslides, earthquakes?
No, I think it's just purely laziness. I think it's just like they don't like hills. But no, it's funny because I think, and look, I don't understand Australia properly. I'm not going to pretend to. But Sydney is very, it's hilly. It's a hilly city.
Yeah.
Melbourne,
is it like
flat.
San Francisco hilly though? Because I guess if it's that extreme,
nothing that crazy. Because I need hills.
Yeah,
like,
me too.
I need that texture going on.
I've just never heard, like, I've heard the opposite. I've heard, like, I want to go live in the mountains or, like, the hilly Appalachian.
While we're talking about Noah, who was kind of my way into this, I'm going to just play you one bit of the interview that I couldn't work into the documentary because it has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very Australian. Was there anything else weird in Australia? Do you have any like weird animal encounters?
Yeah, I mean, I saw kangaroos one of them gave a blowjob to another one. I have video of that. It's great. It was at a park in Melbourne called like Westerfolds Park. And there were like 20 of them and they start fighting. And then one of them like kind of leans down to give the other one a blowjob. And the other dude puts his head back. It was, that's probably illegal to have kangaroo porn on my phone, but who's going to get me in trouble about that?
So I couldn't fit that in the story, but that was Noah's experience.
You can't not include that in this episode either. I think we might need to change the name of this episode from Fake Seizure Guy to Kangaroo
Blowjobs. Yeah, but he loved the flatness and he loved the blowjobs, so that's why he was there.
Maybe just so you can like see kangaroos at a distance,
and see where they are and what they're up to. So flat Melbourne.
Have you ever witnessed someone have a seizure before?
Never. I've never been around someone that's needed any kind of really serious medical help. The only time I've seen a medical emergency was horrible to watch. It was an old guy on a Segway in New Zealand. He hit like a little curb and he went flying, and we all called an ambulance and waited with him until the ambulance came. But I've never been around any kind of like a seizure, a heart attack, anything like that.
I've saw one once in like junior high.
Right.
At like a party.
Mm-hmm.
These kids were playing this game where you like take deep breaths and then you like hold.
Like an asphyxiation? To try and pass out?
To try and pass out, and then like you wake up.
Yeah.
And one of the kids at the party did it and started having a seizure like.
Oh, that's terrifying.
After that. And it was like a few seconds and then he like came to and was fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's intense.
Well, that's the thing. I think, ultimately, I mean, I do still come out of this with so many questions. I mean, I'm amazed that it's been going on for so long. I'm amazed that the Victoria Police appeared not to know anything about it, but then obviously walked that back when they had a statement in a couple of weeks for me.
Yeah.
But also, it's just, I love these kind of stories, or I'm intrigued by them because there's so many different layers going on.
Yeah.
And it just makes you think that first thing, like, what would you do? Which is where we kind of started. After you've heard the circumstances this happened in, do you think you would end up doing what he said and following this series of kind of escalating instructions on what to do?
Well, I could see myself very easily, like I would not do this now, having heard the story. If I saw someone having a seizure and asking me to sit on them, I wouldn't.
Yeah, no, because that's one thing to make clear, like that's not what you should do. Like if you see someone having a seizure, if you take one takeaway from this, don't sit on them, don't restrain them.
But I'm also very avoidant of too much conflict. Like even today, this happened today, outside the coffee shop, there's occasionally people that are there to get you to sign up for petitions. And
yeah, I know this. Things. It's a very common LA thing.
Yeah, and
you fought them.
I didn't fight them. I normally like agree, and I've signed some of those before, but like I'm in a hurry a lot of times when I'm going there, but even just the like I don't have time right now, it makes me uncomfortable to like have to say that because they're also like they know to push and like they're talking to a ton of people and
I know I have a similar conflict with this because I go to a bookstore a lot and they're always outside the bookstore.
Always outside the bookstore.
And it's with my personality, I find it very hard to say no, but I also I don't want, like, I give to a certain, like, that's set in my life. I give to certain things and I know that I can't, that's set in my brain, but I feel incredible guilt.
Yeah. I don't want to give my information to someone that's on the street as well, too. And like, if I want to help this organization, I'll go do it through a different avenue.
Completely. But then there's the guilt of, oh, they're trying to get their quota for the day. I feel less guilt because a lot of those people are getting paid to be there as part of their organization. So it's not like they're there not get
But literally today, so it happened before I came here.
Okay.
I had to pass them to get to the coffee shop. I parked on the other side of them. So I parked, had to walk past them to get to the coffee shop, half a block away. But as I was passing, I was like, I'm in a hurry, sorry. And they're like, all right, we'll get you on the way back. And I was just like, oh, no. So when I left, I literally walked I walked 4 blocks further.
Rob.
Just to walk around so I didn't have to.
No, the awkwardness, because it is then a judgment, because also with the coffee situation, that's a visual thing. You've got to put your money into this thing. So what a horrible, selfish individual you are. Like, that's running in your brain.
Yes.
I've done similar things because of awkwardness and because of not knowing how to deal with it. And I'm sure we're not the only one.
With all that to say, if I am confronted with a situation where someone needs help and is pushing to like do this to help me.
Yeah.
If I'm stuck in that situation, I'll probably do what they need until it gets to a point where it's like dangerous to me or to them.
No, and I think that's exactly what this individual relies on. Like, from everyone I spoke to, he appears to know about the bystander effect. So he's not going to do it in the middle of a cafe where people are like, oh, someone else can do this. He'll find someone that's on their own or just with one friend. And then you're much more likely, of course, like if someone is saying, I'm having a seizure, hold me down. You're like, I don't want this person to like die. So you'll do it. And
maybe the asshole that's thing. Like, no, sorry, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, and then they die in front of you. No one wants to be that person. I also think with this situation, I am, I don't have the answers for what's going on. And I talked to a number of people involved. And, obviously this person has something going on. But the reason I think this is important to tell, sure, it's like a quirky mystery, which is what I'm drawn into. I also want the people of Melbourne to know that they don't have to do this.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of important. And I'm still deeply curious why the police haven't done more.
Did you get the number of public seizures that happened in Melbourne just to make sure that some of them aren't real?
Oh, I didn't.
From other people? Like
I didn't get those stats. And I have no doubt there are definitely people having seizures and you should call the ambulance.
Yes.
That's another tell. Like, call an ambulance. And if they refuse that, then...
Well, the other confusing part to me was he's having the seizure, but he's also giving clear directions on what to do.
Very clear.
To help.
And they escalate. It starts with sitting, and then it's restraining arms, and then like to the point of Porker's dad. Porker's a great name. He wanted to be tied up and restrained, which is, again, then it goes into that whole area of stimming, which is a legitimate thing, but then also... is this that, but combined with something more nefarious, or is it simply someone wanting to get their rocks off? And I'd say ultimately, whether the person emailing was fake Seizure Guy or not, which I think is a legitimate concern.
There's some chance that it was.
I think there is. I mean, full disclosure, as you were listening to that documentary, you said that to me in the moment.
Yeah.
Is that the guy? And that was raised later in the doc. But... the other danger in this is vigilante justice. Like, I don't want this guy getting like beaten up because someone takes this in the wrong way. And I think that's the other surprising thing why there's been no kind of coverage or the police haven't come out with a statement, because ultimately this guy is putting himself in danger if he meets the wrong person. I mean, if you did this in certain parts of America or Los Angeles where people are much more armed and I think prone to violence at times.
More armed and dangerous.
Reference it a little note. Totally. It's a huge risk. So I think that plays into it as well.
So there's a few things of is there a sexual component to this? You brought up that it's only male people that he's asking to do it.
Yes, only male victims that I spoke to. I'm yet to meet a female victim.
Yeah, which there's no concrete evidence that it's sexual.
But it is something in the column of, this could be a thing.
Could be, yeah.
I mean, I think back to Tickled, part of when I was making that film was like, all the people in these tickling videos, they're all young men. And I think the second you get a type in any kind of situation,
it becomes some sort of like fetishized
fantasy. Yeah, and you have to think in that way.
But then it is also then like, if it's not sexual, then is it criminal? And
that's the big thing.
To be like purposely deceitful and faking this medical thing to people, like you can't charge can you charge? I don't think you can charge someone
and
with
that's
that.
I think that's the other almost looking at it in a deeply cynical way. If it is just a deep ploy for this person to get what they want, it is the perfect crime, because if what you want is someone to sit on you, there's nothing illegal about that. It's so innocent. Like, what, the cops are going to turn up, arrest this man for for making me sit on him?
People are willingly doing it because he's saying, like, I need you to do this to help me with my seizure.
I think that's the other reason I was drawn to the story. It raises so many just scenarios of like, at what point then does it become a problem? Like, at what point does something that is regular for you but sexual for someone else, at what point does that become a problem? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, because then it's also the victims of that. Like, there's this weird, like, shame thing that's happening and embarrassment that they were duped.
Completely. And yeah, so that's another reason they don't call the police in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's a perfect
why would
crime.
you do that?
Yeah. And just the scale of this, the fact it's been happening for over a decade in Melbourne. And Melbourne is a big functional city. It's not like some little like bumfuck place in Australia. This is like a big city.
Big flat city.
A big flat city. And fake Seizure Guy has been going at it for a really long time. And just the fact I was in Melbourne for maybe 4 or 5 days and I spoke to that many people, there were a lot more willing to speak with me. It's pretty mad.
So if you had seen him and he wanted you to sit on him, would you have done it?
I would have absolutely not sat on him. What I would have done if I'd seen him is I would walk up to him, I think, and just say, hey, I'm David. I'm from New Zealand. I've been talking to a lot of people that have had a similar story of you having seizures and them sitting on you.
Well, but he's having the seizure at this point.
Oh, currently?
He's currently having the seizure. Is your move, you get on him, you sit on him.
Absolutely. Knowing what I know.
You want him.
Oh, and then
you can ask your question, yeah.
So I restrain him, sort of the technique of like restraining someone and forcing him to answer. I guess he'd be on side. I guess I could say like, how often is this happening? Has this happened to you today?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. I would not go near sitting on him. I'd wait till he got up. And then I would just gently ask him some questions. And I'm super, super curious if he has friends or helpers, that alleged friend that emailed me. Is there anyone around? Because I think if there's anyone in this person's life, they need to communicate to him that this isn't a safe practice and to find another outlet. Do what you do, but find someone that
is willing to do it.
That's the other thing, is the fact it's a
stranger
game,
too.
Is that
probably,
part of the thing?
Yeah.
Again, this is all just like speculation, right? But that again makes the story more fascinating. So look, if you are listening to this and you have any great insight, we're flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. Super curious if you've heard similar stories. I mean, I raise Carpet Guy in this.
Or if you're fake Seizure Guy.
Yeah, if you're the guy and that wasn't you emailing me, 4 months ago, then please do email me because I'd like to know what's going on. And if I've made any errors in this story, then I would love to correct them.
Here's a scenario for you.
Okay.
Fake Seizure Guy listens to this.
Mm-hmm.
He says, David, I'd be willing to let you interview me and I'll talk to you about everything.
I see where this is going.
But you have to be sitting on me while we do it. What do you...
That's interesting. That's almost a bit like the scenario where someone says, I'll give you an interview if you pay me to do it. It's like you're instantly somewhat compromised because you're giving them something they want. I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it?
I wouldn't do it.
It would crack the case. He's like, I'm an open book.
No, because what that would do, it would just validate probably all the answers I think I already know. And I would feel like I'm not going to get anything fresh out of him that I don't already suspect. That would be my general thing.
Right.
The big question is, if I had some sort of medical emergency and it required you to sit on me and to tie me up for 15 minutes as I sort of gyrated on the ground, whether you would do it. I think we have a close enough friendship where I think you would.
Yeah, I don't think that's your proclivity.
No, I mean, I wonder you'll find out.
So
we're on the road again. It'll be like later this week to this live show.
Well, you also wear these little short shorts, so you'll have a towel if that's your thing.
Short shorts is my thing. Just like gently like trying to get a little look over here. So yeah, an unusual story out of Australia. I'm curious for any feedback. I guess I'm also in this curious if you have any sort of local legends in your neighborhood. I'm sort of curious to hear about them now. Any sort of American local versions of this, like a Carpet Man or someone like that. I love these stories of unique people doing unique things and the mystery around it.
I'm sure there's a million in LA.
Oh, there'll be so
Like,
many.
We almost need to leave LA for for these stories.
Yeah, no LA contributions because we know this is full of it already.
Yeah. This is where they all come.
This is where
to
they
become
all
stars. I think it's better when it's not here.
Yeah, I agree. Should we do a little bit of feedback? So yeah, if you want to get in contact with us, we have flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/@flightlessbirdpodcast. Please like and subscribe, as a Calvin would say. Look, the feedback is almost getting unwieldy. There's too much. You logged into the email the other day, right? It's a lot.
But please continue sending it. David seemed annoyed by the amount, but
I was more stressed
to
by
encourage it.
I was just like, because I like everything to be clear in an inbox.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
zero
oh my
inbox.
God, I just need to like... Just quickly, a headline I read this morning before we recorded this, the White House is opening up a spot in their little press briefings to podcasters, influencers, and content creators, which I found fascinating.
Do you know, is it like select podcasters that have been approved that come from a list? Can we?
Great question. I think we should apply.
Yeah, can we apply?
No, I'm going to apply.
Okay.
And I'm going to see what the response is. I imagine it will be a rejection because I imagine the White House wants to give that spot to a certain type of podcaster or influencer. And I suspect Flightless Bird isn't in that category.
I mean, we might have to pivot if you get a desk at the White House.
It's time to pivot. I love Elon. A big fan. Get us that spot. All right. Now, I can't even remember what we were talking about in this episode, but I wanted...
Fake Seizure Guy.
Fake Seizure Guy. No, in the previous one, we were looking for a word that we couldn't find.
Yeah.
What was I referring to at the time?
No, it was me. We were talking about the inauguration being the same day as Martin Luther King Day.
Okay. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I saw a lot of
Devin wrote in... We ended up coming up with obnoxiously conflicting, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Devin said you're looking for irony or paradox. And then Irene wrote in and said you were probably looking for antithetical. And I think that's the one.
It's antithetical, yeah.
It's not irony. You want to jump to that. Antithetical? Thank you, Irene. Just in regards to the inauguration epi, this is a person that wanted to remain anonymous. I've been a federal employee for almost 20 years. I regularly access links from whitehouse.gov for my job. The week of the inauguration, I was following a safe link per usual and quickly realized the document had been taken down. Confused, I followed my normal troubleshooting protocol and was met with the Trump propaganda. I mean, that was that big stars and stripes, jets flying across the sky. I immediately felt sadness and comfort. As an American government employee, I feel double embarrassed and guilty for being part of the system. I'm grateful for what my job provides me and my family, and resentful and scared of what it might turn into. Anyway, appreciate the episodes. They keep a smile on my face.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing about all of this is like where it's headed.
Completely. Yeah, I had another anonymous employee write in case people don't have a sense of how the federal workforce keeps this country functioning, because the media and Doge would have us all painted as lazy bureaucrats. There are like 3 million of us, and mostly we do non-newsworthy, very important things. We distribute critical benefits like Medicaid, SNAP, Social Security, etc., etc. We keep national parks clean and safe and awesome. We study and publish data on diseases and disease prevention. We keep government records accurate, organized, and accessible. We make sure all government websites work right, etc. That's just scratching the surface. Critically, most of us are in non-partisan roles. And by the way, the pay is much less than the private sector for the same skills. That said, the new administration is gutting the non-partisan workforce so they can replace us with political henchmen who only care about licking boots. It's bone-chilling. They're conducting loyalty interviews, removing anyone who works on DIE initiatives, reclassifying non-partisan employees as political appointees, and giving Project 25 authors access to employee records and HR decision-making. So yeah, just a little insight.
So Project 25 is in full force?
Yeah, according to this federal employee, it is.
That's scary.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very prominent thing.
That was denied, I think.
It was denied, but it's pretty obviously in play.
Is any part of you a little proud that some federal employees listen to this show?
Oh, amazed. No,
at least two.
No, amazed.
Yeah.
No, it was. Like, I always like it when people write in that work in the spaces we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I very much feel like an outsider. Does it have people that are in these roles?
Yeah.
It's great. So I get especially excited when like a university lecturer or a school teacher writes in. There was a social studies teacher that wrote in saying they enjoyed the show. And it's like, I feel like, okay, we must be slightly on the right track.
Yeah.
That feels nice. A lot about lazy rivers. Haley wrote saying, I had a chuckle when I heard you guys on this week's inauguration episode talk about lazy rivers and floating. As someone from Wisconsin, home of the water park capital of the world, the Wisconsin Dells, I feel particularly qualified to share what I believe to be the definition of a lazy river. No, it's not just a chill river without rapids. It's a man-made circular river of pool water with a man-made current that pushes all of the tubes down in the same direction.
Do you know about the Wisconsin Dells?
This is the first time I'd heard of it. Iconic?
It's a place.
Okay,
I mean, my
park.
it's an area in Wisconsin. It's 2 or 3 hours north of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
It's like my family still goes up to Wisconsin Dells around like the holidays.
And what
stuff.
do you mostly go there for?
There's water parks.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a Ripley's, believe it or not.
These are all great things.
It's like a kind of touristy little town.
I mean, everything you're saying
Wisconsin.
about it sounds great. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
And I want to do a water park episode now because a lot of people wrote in incredibly passionately about water park culture in America.
You know who would love to go to water park with you? Calvin.
Oh, I would. I'm down.
Both Natalie and I do not like water parks.
No, you're not into it?
It's just like a lot of kids and a lot of piss.
Oh, yeah, in the water. Yeah.
In the water. So we've kind of outlawed them, but whenever we go back to Chicago, he always convinces my mom to take him to the water park and that was his highlight of his summer was going to the water park.
What's the slides, right? It's like slides as a kid are so exciting and endless. You just do it and then up to the top again.
Yeah. So you and Calvin.
Happily. I'd love to take them.
I think she's right about lazy rivers being man-made, circular, but there is tubing and like river floats.
And that's where we get to now.
Yeah, okay.
Megan wrote in, I had a near-death experience back in 2011. My then fiance, now husband, we're living near Fort Collins, Colorado. CO? Is that Colorado?
Colorado, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. One day, he decided he'd go fishing near the Pudere, apparently, river, during the days I was working. One day he mentioned he had seen a bunch of people tubing down the river and we should go sometime. I was all for it. It seemed fun and harmless, and he said adults and children of all ages were tubing there. Fast forward to the next week, and another couple, my fiance and I, decided to go ahead on this lazy river adventure. We drive to Pudere Canyon, stopping at a small gas station on the side of the road to pick up the tubes. It's not a rental place, just a place to purchase said tubes. No waiver to sign or expectation to bring them back. What you do with the tubes after you buy them is up to you. I probably should have seen this as a red flag. As we're getting further into the canyon, I'm noticing that there are some rapids in the river. This is not looking like a lazy river to me, but he insisted that the part of the river we're going to doesn't have any rapids. We meet up with our friends at a good location, and our entry to the river, adult beverages at hand, we wade into a pretty cold river. As we start out, it's okay. The water isn't moving too fast. The hardest bit is trying to stay together. A group of adults and 2 kids with life jackets and helmets are getting into the water where we entered. Once again, I look at my soon-to-be husband quizzically. Are you sure it's safe? I said, looking at the helmets. He reassured me that it was fine. I didn't want to be a Debbie Downer, so I just pushed my fear aside. We start picking up speed. The family who got in just after us is bobbing alongside us now. They've obviously done this before, so I'm slightly relieved. We've been in the river for 5 minutes when all hell breaks loose. We come around a bend and there is a huge boulder sticking out of the river. I remember maybe there was a spot where you had to lift your butt up so you didn't get caught scraped on the smaller jagged rocks under the water. Now the adults in the family pass us and their kids aren't far behind. I've lost the ability to grab onto my fiance. We see some rapids coming up. And these rapids are massive boulders sticking out. The 2 kids are now passing me and navigating their way around 2 of the boulders. I had no control over where I was going because I'm in a fucking tube with no pedals. I only had a vodka on me. I'm picking up speed. I'm flung straight into a boulder. My tube flips. I hit my head in the boulder beneath the water. My life flashed before my eyes. I thought it would be the end. I come up crying and screaming. Somehow I managed to hang on to my tube. Cut a long story short, it wasn't a lazy river.
Yeah.
She married that man that almost killed her. They're apparently living happily ever after, but she said be very careful on what river you go in and do actually make sure it's a lazy river.
Yeah, make sure it's a sanctioned lazy river.
Got to be sanctioned. Okay, I'm going to end on this. Mariah. So I get that the wildfires are terrible, but to be honest, I was completely distracted by Rob's hot podcast documentary voice. Where has he been hiding that voice? More Rob documentary voice. Please, you need to narrate a true crime podcast.
When I did that one, I think we had a conversation about how awkward it is.
Because that's the first time, like you've spoken live a lot, but it's a different thing when you're recording something you've written and you're reading it out. And also, that was a very intense story, so you're so conscious of how you...
Yeah, you have to be earnest in what you're saying, too.
And I think you and I are identical, where we both struggle to be earnest. And I think that's just... I don't know, it's probably like issues from our childhood.
Probably.
I just want to say, genuinely, it's funny, but also genuinely, your voice is great. I also agree that it is a hot podcast voice. And I love seeing you scream. All right, that's this week's episode. Thanks for listening in. Okay, see ya.